after I got home from work that Bernie's not going to make it. He's got a problem. Right. Soupy's not going to make it. He's got a problem with broken something or some kind of a fracture, you know. These are
what about you and Boot?
No, the kid.
I'd like to call this meeting to order.
Yeah, I got a call.
He is coming.
He is coming.
Call the January 16th, 2018 combined pre-council and city council meeting to order. The Honorable Mayor Bob Odecook presiding.
Father Jankowski is here to lead us in the invocation from St. Patrick's Church at 710 West Marion Street, after which he will lead us in the pledge to the flag. If you could please rise.
Shout out to the Mayor Jr. over there. Good job in the back. Also want to give a shout out to one of my parishioners, Matt Gummis, who is getting ordained as a Carmelite priest this Saturday and whose first mass is at my parish on Sunday. In thanksgiving to all those who have dedicated themselves to serving others with a contrite heart, I'd like to offer a simple prayer and some good common sense from a reading of the Bible from the first book of Corinthians. Brothers and sisters, strive eagerly for the greatest spiritual gifts, but I will show you still a more excellent way. If I speak in human and angelic tongues but do not have love, I am a resounding gong or a clashing cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and comprehend all mysteries and all knowledge, if I have faith as to move mountains but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away everything I own, if I hand my body over to those that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind, love is not jealous, it is not pompous, it is not inflated, it is not rude, it does not seek out its own interests, it is not quick-tempered, it does not brood over injury, it does not rejoice over wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
We'll begin with roll call. Mayor Odecook.
Here.
Councilman Dickinson.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Here.
Councilman Girl.
Here.
Councilman Hugg.
Here.
Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Mudrin.
Here.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Here.
Councilman Turk.
Here.
Under presentations is the Will Community Freight Mobility Plan presentation by John Grueling with Will County Center for Economic Development.
Thank you. Mayor and the members of the City Council and attendees today. I appreciate the time this evening to give you a quick overview of a project that in reality has been about 15 years in the making. In 2002, when the first intermodal yard opened in Elwood, the Burlington Northern Santa Fe, I think Will County and its communities really didn't understand much about the logistics industry, what an intermodal yard was, and all these containers coming in relatively quickly. And over the years, of course, the Union Pacific yard was opened more recently. And the Center for Economic Development, in conjunction with Will County, the Will County leadership on the board, and County Executive Walsh, we've been very concerned and interested in this business, but also watchful of the impacts on our communities in the county and, quite frankly, all of Northeastern Illinois. The Center for Economic Development about 4.5 years ago created Will County Freight Advisory Council, made up primarily of companies in the logistics and distribution industry. We felt it was important to hear from them, to integrate their thoughts, but also to get them in front of our local elected officials to talk about issues on both sides. We came to the conclusion that understanding the freight industry in Will County was the first thing we needed to do. There's growth in the industry has been astounding, but we didn't really understand it. So we moved forward with scoping out a freight mobility plan, and we call it the community-friendly freight mobility plan because it's not just your typical transportation study or your freight study or your economic impact study. We try to look at all facets of the industry and its growth in the county, its future growth in the county, but also the impacts on all of us as residents and business owners and elected officials that have to deal with a lot of the local issues. So the plan was a collaborative effort. We started the project with a grant from the National Association of Realtors, one of their Smart City grants. We hired Ann Schneider, former Secretary of Transportation for Illinois, now running her own consulting business, to do a scope on the study. And that was when we really stepped up looking for funding for a study, and we brought in a lot of partners, as you can see on the slide in front of you. Will County Government, the U.S. Department of Transportation, IDOT, JADA, Illinois Soybean Association, the Workforce Investment Board, and others all joined forces to put this forward. We put together almost $1 million in funding, and true to economic developers, we like to use other people's money. The CED put funding in, the county put funding in, but the majority of the research was paid for through state and federal transportation grants, which we think is a good use of that, considering what's going on here. So tonight I'm going to go through a little bit about the plan background, which I've given you a fair share of, the findings, some select analysis, recommendations, the freight projects, and the plan implementation. So the goal here was basically four parts, if you will. One was to understand the movement of freight in the county today, what's really going on here. Secondly, what does the future of that look like? And what's the impact of that future on our communities, our local roads, our interstate highways? Thirdly, what are the projects that we need to be concerned about and make investments in order to accommodate the future growth of this industry and other businesses in the county, as well as residential growth? And then the fourth piece was to look at the community impacts, to look at quality of life issues, to look at the environmental issues, and also take a look at the workforce. What were the workforce demands on this industry, both locally and regionally, and a lot of concern that we've heard throughout the years about low-paying warehouse jobs and whether or not there were career opportunities. So these are things that we looked at in this study, in this plan. Again, as I said, the genesis of this goes back to when we created the Freight Advisory Council, and I'm going to go through all of this, but we started the study in November of 2016, and that's when we kind of put our shoulder to the wheel, if you will. A big part of the study was getting the community involved, not just the business community, but elected officials, municipalities, obviously the county board, but also citizens. We wanted to understand what their issues were. Of course, I don't think a day goes by where I don't get gigged on truck traffic or getting stuck at a train crossing. I always hear from my wife by text where she's in some traffic that I'm responsible for, and therefore I live this every day. So again, we did a tremendous job, I think, at doing outreach. We went even to the point of leaving questionnaire surveys in truck driver break rooms in some of our largest distribution facilities to get their sort of feeling on what their challenges were moving around the county. The key findings, and we kind of knew this, but we didn't know the magnitude of it. With over 3 million containers coming in and leaving the county every year, primarily through the intermodal yards, there's over $65 billion worth of product in those containers that are managed somehow in Will County. The real interesting thing is all of the freight that comes in the county and through the county has a value of something north of $623 billion, which represents 3.5% of the gross domestic product. So one of the things we want to do with this plan is to demonstrate to the federal government and the region that Will County is more than just a truck stop and a warehouse. We are responsible for the movement of literally 3.5% of the gross domestic product in this country. So if a bridge goes out on 80, it has a huge national economic impact. And this is what our study showed us. The other thing that we found, and you can see in the lower right hand of this slide, is that given all of the traffic, all the truck traffic we see and feel in Will County, 63% of the freight traffic in Will County every day is just passing through. So if you took away all of the distribution centers, all the warehouses, all the intermodal yards, we would still have almost 64% of the freight volume passing through the county every day. Again, demonstrating to the federal government and to the region that we are the bridge between the western U.S. and the eastern U.S. when it comes to moving not just commodities, but TVs and clothes and food. And again, we share an inordinate burden because of that as a county. Certainly northeastern Illinois does as well. And that's why we have become this largest inland container port in North America. But if you look at the effects on our economy, there's over 106,000 jobs in Will County that rely on the transportation industry, the freight industry, the distribution industry for their job, representing over $5 billion of earnings. And the fact of the matter is that it represents about 55% of our total economy. Now, it's just not the distribution and the trucking companies. It's all of the other industries that rely on our location, on our transportation assets, be it food, be it other commodities, manufacturing. All of those companies that are here because of our transportation assets. The future is kind of the scary part. If you look at the growth of employment in this industry sector since 2005, it's 138% in terms of job growth, compared to 10% in the Chicago region, 9% in Kansas City, some of our competing logistics. We just blew the doors off in terms of logistics growth. And we're expecting between now and 2026 another 33% in terms of job creation. In fact, some of this was done before Amazon had occupied all of their facilities here. We think that number is probably closer to 40 or 45% between now and 2026. So it's a big job generator. And not all the jobs are being filled locally, but also not all the people that live in Will County that's in this industry works locally. 55,000 people a day that live in Will County that work in the logistics industry leave the county every day for their job. And that's a pretty startling statistic in itself. So what did we learn from the study? Number one, obviously, freight is critical to our economy. We know now that it's also critical to the state and the national economy. Because of the velocity and the speed of this growth, traditional planning does not handle the pace of this development, nor do ordinances that were created 15, 20, 25 years ago. So we're seeing uses. You've had to review and approve or deny uses that our current laws really haven't addressed very well in terms of what they do and the impacts they have on our region. Freight volume is going to grow, and therefore it's going to continue to impact not only our quality of life, but safety and congestion on our byways. So without planning and new transportation investments, we're going to lose our competitive edge, not just in logistics, but in many other industry sectors that I referred to earlier. And the number one issue today, as you all know, there's not enough money to do the work that needs to be done on a local highway system. And it's very, very difficult today to rely on the federal and the state government as we have traditionally to help us with these improvements. And of course, I-80 is sort of the poster child right now. We need help from the state and the region and the federal government to make this happen. So here's some of the things we learned. We learned that there's about 17 freight clusters that already exist in the county. And there's been over 100 million square feet of industrial distribution space built in these freight clusters since 2002. Now, this is a plan, but this is not demonstrating where we think future industrial parks and logistics operations should go. This is where they are growing right now. So if we didn't, if you didn't approve, or Elwood or New Lenox didn't approve one more industrial park for development, the existing clusters that are out there today have capacity for another 70 million square feet of industrial space. So if, you know, this talk about let's put a moratorium on warehouses, the fact of the matter is the communities have already zoned, planned, and invested in business and industrial parks that will allow for another 70 million square feet. So stopping new developments from happening is one thing. Fact of the matter is this growth is going to continue to happen. We also looked at where the freight that comes into Will County, where does it go once it clears here? And for the most part, we are a northern Midwestern distribution center. By far, most of the product goes into Cook County. It goes all the way up north of Milwaukee and over to Indiana. And so we are a critical distribution, part of the critical distribution network for the upper Midwest. The crash hotspots, no surprise, they're aligned with where most of these industrial centers are. And a lot of that has to do with first and last mile deficiencies, but also interstate deficiencies. And it gives us a good idea of where we should start putting some investment to take care of these things. Motorist delay, we looked at things like, you know, how many times, how many hours a day are people stopped at a train crossing in Will County? And where are those that are the highest and potentially candidates for grade separation structures? Bridge condition, this is a big issue. We have a lot of bridges in Will County. Many of them are in pretty good shape. But as you can see towards the Joliet center of this, there's some bridges that are deficient. Doesn't mean you can't drive on them, but recently IDOT put a firm weight limit on the Briggs Street Bridge. And that's because even though it can handle 80,000-pound trucks, it no longer will issue overweight permits on that bridge. It's not falling down, but it needs to be brought to a state of good repair. Something else a lot of people wonder, well, where do these people come from? If you look at where the people work that are in the two intermodal yards in Joliet and Elwood, they're primarily coming from the immediate area. So even though there's a number of people that drive actually pretty far, when you look at some of those homes on the north side that employees come down here to drive, the concentration of workers is in the general Will County area. So there's a lot of local people that are employed by these firms. So if we're going to go to the federal government seeking funding, we knew we had to come up with a list of projects that we felt comfortable promoting, and we could demonstrate through our plan that we really need some help and these investments need to be made. So we took the universe of all of the projects that are on everybody's plan in Will County. 37 municipalities, the townships, the county, the federal, state governments, CMAP, City of Joliet. And out of all of those, we identified 91 that have a very high impact, if you will, in the positive movement of freight in some regard. Out of those, we selected 25 that have the most value in terms of improving freight, and the projects were evaluated using that information on the in the dark square. Preservation enhancement, that basically means bringing this infrastructure up to good repair. And safety, mobility, every project that would demonstrate that it could do this got higher points on the scale, and that's how we came up with the priorities. So this is a map of all 91 projects, and they're rated between sort of tier 1, 2, 3, and 4. It doesn't mean that tier 1s all need to be done before tier 3s, but it does give some sense of prioritization when we have a limited pot of money. Where should Will County, its communities, spend this money? And so right after this plan was done in September, we took a delegation to DC. We met with congressional leadership, our delegation. We met with key members of congressional staff that are on the various transportation and commerce committees. And we presented them this list of 4 key projects. There's multiple projects here. Number 1 being the 80 fix. And we can talk all day about all of the things that need to go on there, but there's a lot of stuff that needs to go on there. And it's not going to happen overnight. What we're hearing from IDOT, in a perfect world, it would take 10 to 15 years to get all these projects done. So that's why there's discussions going on with the tollway, looking at managed lanes that could be privately maintained and built. I-55, I-80 interchange has to be reconstructed. Add lanes on 55 south of 80. And then one project that will break ground this year is the 55 Weber Road interchange, which is long overdue. And again, heavy participation from Will County with the state and the communities up there. So the recommendations, implement these priorities that we've identified. We're going to continue to look at these projects, and as opportunities for funding come up, whether it be a new transportation bill in Springfield or you know, the $1 billion infrastructure bill that is going to come out of the administration, if we can believe that, hopefully it will. We want to be ready. We also have to look at things like improving coordination of oversight of overweight permits throughout the county. We have to do a better job of data collection. Most of the information that we gathered for this plan was new information. We knew that using 4-, 5-, 6-year-old information that a lot of these studies typically use wasn't good enough for us. Hence, the cost of this thing was really had a lot to do with the information. We need to improve our east-west accessibility through this county. I-80 can't carry the load, the weight by itself, so to speak. The CED's been a big proponent of the Joliet Expressway. We think that as much as 25 or 30% of the freight traffic on 80 would come off of 80 and take the Ileana the day it would open. That's how much of an impact that kind of a road could have. We also are looking at air cargo, and again, we've been strong supporters of South Suburban Airport. We have to work with our employers on their hiring and business and employee retention issues. Workforce mobility is a big issue. Again, you look at the maps of where the employees come from. We all know that we don't have the same type of public transportation that Cook County has. And yet, if you look at the numbers, we've created more jobs since 2001 than Cook County has, net new jobs. Our job growth rate is 30% over that period of time. And Cranes is promoting what great growth was in Chicago, but it was about half of that. And again, we barely got a mention in that, and we have to tell our story better, but we also have to get better transportation for our workforce. We have to identify a truck route network throughout the county. And we're going to need your help. I know you have already identified preferred truck routes in the city. We have 37 municipalities that have to consider or contemplate doing the same thing, so that we can tell the truckers where we want them to go, and not rely on an outdated GPS system that they may be operating from. And then we also have to coordinate transportation and land use development. We also have a series of community recommendations specifically geared to act as a guide for best practices for municipalities. That's in the plan. We have some very good, very deep environmental recommendations. We had a couple of very, let's say, lively meetings with the environmental community on this plan, and for the most part, I think they gave us some really good information, and we've tried to accommodate a lot of their suggestions. The implementation, we've identified 8 action categories and very specific things to do. First and foremost, and this is where we're going to need your help, we need better advocacy for our situation. Every time we can talk to a state legislator, talk to somebody from Congress that represents us or doesn't represent us, Senator Durbin, Senator Duckworth, we have to tell them our story and why we need their help. community collaboration, things that I've already talked about, create a community resource center to help communities better understand this industry, but also to help industry find people to go to work in their facilities. And the intergovernmental outreach, land use, project prioritization, which helps us set our priorities for projects. And then, you know, take this to the road, make sure that all of this goes forward. And it's a big job. So the entire plan is on willcountyfreight.org. It's voluminous with all the attachments. We're probably pushing over 400 pages. But, you know, if you have insomnia, you might want to dial it up and take a look at it. There really is some very good information as part of that plan. So I want to thank you for the time. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. It was a great presentation.
Mayor?
Any questions?
Yes, I have a couple questions. How were you received when you guys went down to Washington, D.C.? Did you present this plan here, or did you have another one when you went down there?
No, this was basically, Jan, the same thing. I got to tell you, the aha moment for the congressional people we met with was those statistics on how much freight is moving through the county, and the fact that we are carrying more than our fair share of that.
So if we shut down, the whole country shuts down as far as moving freight through.
Well, the impact on the county, on the nation would be significant.
So how did it look for the Department of Transportation when we asked for their help?
Well, you know, they've been very supportive. The Federal Highway Administration, I would say, has been very supportive. But you know, they don't have a lot of money. One of the things that they did do in the most recent transportation bill was set aside special funding for freight projects. It wasn't very much, but at least they're headed in the right direction. We're encouraging them to consider putting more in that kitty so that we can, you know, go after that. Because we're just not your usual road improvement. We're carrying a lot of weight here, so to speak. Pardon the pun.
So if the federal government doesn't have any money, and the municipalities don't have any money, you want us to lobby our state legislators and senators, where are they going to get the money?
Well, obviously, again, if there's an opportunity to create a capital bill at the federal or state level, you know, and I think we have to look at revenue sources. I think we have to look at gas tax. We have to look at, you know, state of Oregon is trying vehicle miles traveled user fee. I mean, these are things, you know, public-private partnerships. You know, the state is looking at adding lanes on 55, north of 55, north of 355, and that would be paid for through basically private investment that would recoup their investment through tolls.
So with that being said, okay, instead of us lobbying each one individually, why don't we call them to a huge meeting and let them know our dire straits here?
Well, I think that's part of it too. I mean,
well, that wasn't mentioned, so I just wanted to know it, because if they're not aware of it, our state and senators and Congress people that are locally here at Illinois and in the tri-state area, you know, I think instead of waiting another 20 years, we've been talking about an airport for well over 20 years, and that hasn't even happened. We can't afford to wait another 20 years to get some lanes on these highways.
I agree.
So that's my opinion, and whatever I can do to help, you have my number.
Thank you.
John, my last meeting with IDOT, they identified widening I-80 from New Lenox to Ridge Road, I believe, is $1 billion project. The Des Plaines River Bridge will be $300 million by itself.
Right.
So I think it's needless to say the state of Illinois does not have that kind of
No, I'm talking about the federal government.
But it's going to have to be a federal solution.
Absolutely.
The money's not available at the state level.
No.
Well, again, there's some discussion about tolling, whether you add a lane and toll that lane on 80, or whether you, under a special pilot project with the feds, toll the whole interstate. I mean, once you leave Illinois, it's a tollway all the way through Pennsylvania. I-80 is a tollway all the way to the East Coast almost. So, you know, I think those are the kinds of solutions we have to look at.
Yes.
John, thank you for the presentation. Awesome. Getting back to the Ileana Expressway, and so where are we with that? You know, there was a lot of hype about it, and then it sort of just faded away. So are we still talking, or is that project, what's going on?
Well, we're talking about it.
Yeah, we're talking.
At the meeting at USF last week, Secretary Blankenhorn was asked that very question, what's up with the Ileana? And he basically said it's like, and you know, when Governor Rauner was elected, he put the brakes on all projects, all major capital projects statewide. Unfortunately, that fell into that hat, and that's pretty much where it is. I'd like to say different, but it's not.
Yeah, really. We have to stir that pot up again and get it out of there. Okay, thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Quick question.
Yes.
John. John?
Yeah.
Thanks. So right now, you know, we've got a lot of details about the problem, the causes, conditions, engineering. As far as the solutions, we're early on in that process,
Right.
correct? Because, you know, when you mention toll, I'm going to say what most people probably watching are thinking is, I don't want to pay toll for my car so that they can make money at the intermodal. Has there been a consideration of a local traffic versus through traffic tolling to where those that do live between here and Tinley Park are going to go through the local lanes, right?
Well, I think there's a lot of different options.
To where the transportation of goods is paying for it in the toll lanes that they would be required to use until they get off.
Right, and the so-called hot lanes that actually have a variable toll depending on how much traffic is on the rest of the road. I mean, states, you know, those are throughout Northern Virginia if you travel there. I mean, you know, instead of taking 30 minutes to get to a stop, you can pay $8 and get there in 10 minutes. And people do it, but not everybody. But it also frees up other lanes. The other thing is tolling lanes that are set up strictly for trucks. And again, using the through concept. The trucker folks I know don't really like that idea, but at some point in time, I think we have to look at all these options.
That would be the part of the cost of doing business, right?
Exactly.
Okay, I was just curious if that was on the table. And like I said, we're so early in the process.
I think everything's on the table.
Right.
I think it has to be.
Okay, thanks, John.
Thank you.
Next is Bob Navarro with the Heritage Corridor Convention and Visitors Bureau regarding 2017 marketing review.
Just test something out here. All right. Mayor, Council, thank you for allowing me to give you this update tonight. We're going to talk about the 2017 marketing campaign and also going to preview Joliet Restaurant Week, which is coming up next month. So very excited to share some news about that. So just to review, the marketing media campaign that we took on for the city of Joliet included television, digital, social media postings, radio spots, print, a variety of print, and then fulfillment from people that requested information about Joliet. We fulfilled those requests, and then we did a variety of leisure trade shows. Some were centered around Route 66, others were centered just throughout the state, in Chicago and Rosemont and things like that, to share Joliet information. So I'm going to review with you, and what I'm reviewing is this packet here. I know I left some things at your table, so this is the review that I'm going through tonight. The campaign partners, of course, the City of Joliet, Hollywood Casino, Harris Casino, Route 66 Raceway, Chicagoland Speedway, Joliet Park District and City Center Partnership were new this year, or came back to the campaign, so to speak. Lewis Joliet Mall, Joliet Area Historical Museum, and the Joliet Public Library were all part of the campaign, as well as Will County Lodging Association. So those were your campaign partners in 2017. And the objectives of the campaign were to inspire visitors to come to Joliet and educate them on some of what Joliet has to offer. So we did that through a variety of branding initiatives, print media, commercial spots and things like that. But we wanted to inspire them, get them excited about this. So it was high energy, high impact. I'm going to show you some of the spots and then educate them about some of the offerings here. We directed people to a website. So if people were interested, they could click right in to a website. They could request Joliet information through the website, or they could go to these websites and find out more about the Joliet attractions. And then of course, we tried to brand the campaign. We had, for the last several years, used the City of Excitement, and we were noticing on social media, people were commenting about see you in J-Town and we'll meet up in J-Town and that kind of thing. So we shifted the campaign a little bit and used some of the same exciting high impact graphics. We freshened up the color when we went with see you in J-Town for the campaign. So that was the branding that we used throughout the campaign with all the media. And then fulfillment, which is a major component of the campaign as well, which I'll talk about in a second. So for television, we did mostly cable television. Cable included Comcast, AT&T, WOW, RCN, and Dish. So we had over 1,400 spots on cable. About 30% of those spots, as people were watching the spot on TV, we did what we call an RFI overlay. So as they saw the spot, there was a box at the bottom, they could press the remote and request more information about the commercials. So from that, we received 851 requests for information about Joliet from the RFI spots. So we were excited about that. That's a little bit up from last year. But it was only about 30% of the spots. The RFI overlays are more expensive than just regular spots. Here's the first spot. Again, we did 2, so I'm going to show you the first one. And no sound.
Probably have more of an impact.
You want me to sing? So we did 2 spots. We did one that was heavy with the casinos and the Raceway Speedway, and then we did another one that was heavy with downtown and the mall and that kind of thing. So you can see the visuals are very fast, high impact. We've got a lot of different images in there. This is a spot at the end with the visitor guide. That's the visitor guide that we use for fulfillment. So that's the first spot. I'm going to show you the second one real quickly here. I can hear it. I can hear it faintly. Okay. So this visitjoliet.com goes back to the city's site, and that's where we directed people for additional information. We did have some additional television last year for Joliet, not directly with the summer campaign. One mini campaign that we did was for last year's Restaurant Week, and we had spots in WTTW, specifically on Check Please program. And then we were able to secure a spot at the last minute on one of the Cubs playoff games, and we did a 30-second spot about Route 66. And so we have these spots, but I'm gonna just fast forward those. And then we supported Joliet on a variety of digital means. You'll see on the far left side there are some of the websites that we generated content for, we maintained, we designed, and monitored throughout the campaign. So one was for Restaurant Week, another was Joliet Kicks, then the Miles of Possibility, which was a Route 66 conference that was here in Joliet in October, and then the Visit Joliet page as well. So those were all websites that my staff maintained, curated content, put that on there, and then tracked visitor usage to those sites. We had a variety of email blasts that went out throughout the year, and several of them featured Joliet information or Joliet attractions or Joliet events. And then the pocket guide, which should be in your stack of information. This is the Route 66 pocket guide. We did a partnership with Will County to produce this piece and to get this information out to people that were traveling Route 66. So it gave them places to stop along the way, attractions, restaurants, and different places photo opportunities to stop along 66. So that little mini campaign had quite a bit of Facebook impressions and banner ads and retargeting through the Route 66 pocket guide. Other digital that we did just for the summer campaign was Comcast. We did permission views as people went to the Comcast site or they went on different pages within Comcast. They would see a little icon or image of the commercial spot. Then they would click onto it and watch it. So it wasn't force view where they had to watch it before seeing another video. They would actually click onto those spots to see them. And then we did digital with American Road Magazine, which is a lot of people that travel by car throughout the United States. A lot of the scenic byways and different roadways advertise and work with American Road. So we did a getaway specifically for Joliet, and then we did a Route 66 getaway itinerary as well for that through American Road. And that was all online and digital. Print, we supported the campaign through a variety of print. The biggest is the visitor guide, which I know I've distributed to folks before. We also did some magazines, a playbill, a couple printed pieces to support some of the campaign partners, and then the water bill inserts, which the partners seem to really enjoy having that exposure locally. So with the water bill inserts, we did 5 inserts last year, 2 specifically for Restaurant Week, January, February, and this month there is a water bill insert now for Restaurant Week. We also did a water bill insert for Downtown City Center Partnership that highlighted their restaurants and their events. And then we did for the 2 casino restaurants, and as well as for Route 66, Raceway, and Chicagoland Speedway. Other printed pieces, you'll see on the far right there, we did the Downtown Attractions Guide. That's a piece that we worked on several years ago. We resurfaced that, updated it, and printed that for City Center Partnership. And then the little pocket guides. Other print, we did a couple months of playbill to get some of that exposure during the peak season of the summer campaign. And then we followed it up with a bonus ad in November, highlighting some of the events at the Rialto. And Val was just telling me tonight that she had heard from several people that saw the ad in the publication and was complimenting some of the entertainment acts that were in the ad. So that's great to hear. On the right-hand side, you'll see some of the visitor guides that we specifically promoted Joliet in. The Route 66 guide is the statewide guide for Route 66. The bottom two that say Chicago, that's the Chicago visitor guide. And they come out, they have 2 issues that they come out, a spring, summer, and a fall, winter. Other magazines that we did Chicago Magazine, and I think I gave some of you copies of that, but we did a 2-page spread highlighting some of the events, some of the attractions. Food Traveler Magazine actually called us and they wanted to do an article about some of our food spots along 66, so we did an article and then followed that up with an ad as well. And then we were in Route 66 Magazine as well as the State's Travel Guide. That's the bottom, this one in the bottom center, Travel Illinois, that's the State's Visitor Guide. And that's published by Meredith Publications, who also does Midwest Living and a variety of those magazines. So campaign fulfillment. There are a variety of places where people could request Joliet information, obviously through Comcast, I already mentioned that. American Road, they could request information. We did an online retargeting campaign with Connect, which is all digital, based on the digital advertising that we placed. And Travel Illinois, as well as America Journal, all those places people could request Joliet information. And we received over 9,000 requests for Joliet information. And part of the campaign is we sent them the Joliet Visitor Guide as well with partner information. And we mailed that out to all of those people that requested it. Some of the promotions that we went to, we did the Mag Mile Lights Festival, we did C2E2 promoting Star Wars Day up in Rosemont, Berwyn Car Show, Frontier League, a variety of different places that we consider leisure shows where we're trying to just promote for people to come for entertainment for the weekend kind of thing. And once again, just want to thank the partners, put their logos up one more time. We can't do this campaign without the partners. This is what we consider a co-op campaign. All these partners bring information as well as photos, videos, and dollars to the table to make this campaign work. So we appreciate all of their support. And now, Restaurant Week. So last year, we launched the first ever Restaurant Week for Joliet area last year. And we had, last year in February, we had 20 restaurants participating, 13 from Joliet and 7 from outside the area. We created a new website, JolietRestaurantWeek.com, and we listed the different offerings that people have. So some of the reason this was launched was some of your feedback saying, hey, all these other communities are doing this. We have great restaurants, we should try it too. So we had been talking with the different restaurants, trying to make this work. And we launched it last February, and we supported the campaign mostly with digital. We did a little bit of print, like I said, the water bill inserts, and then we created a passport that each restaurant participant had that listed all the restaurants that were participating. But most of the campaign was supported with, promoted through digital, as well as we did some radio spots with JOL and the River. So that leads us to this year. So last year, the restaurants that participated were very excited, all wanted to do it again. And so this year, Restaurant Week is February 18th to the 25th. We're still updating the website, so it's ready. It'll be ready by the end of the month. But February 18th to the 25th, and we have almost 40 restaurants participating. So we're thrilled with that, that participation. We have 22 from Joliet and 17 from outside the area. So we've almost doubled what we did last year regarding participation. And restaurants can do a buy one, get one offer. They could do a free appetizer, dessert, a certain percentage off their bill, or whatever offer they feel is appropriate to them. And again, we're going to support the campaign mostly. Well, here's some print that we're going to do. Food Traveler called us again. They said that they were interested in what we were doing with Restaurant Week again. So they did a whole another profile about Joliet restaurants, and we expanded it out from the Route 66 article that we did the previous year, followed that up with an ad. We're doing a passport again, and those will be distributed a couple weeks prior to Restaurant Week to all of the participating restaurants, and they'll also include a map of all the participating restaurants. Doing the water bill inserts for January and February, and then we did a full-page ad in Chicago Magazine this month in February for Restaurant Week. And then we have a unique partnership with Shaw Media, which is the Joliet Herald and Morris Herald and Herald Life and those publications. We're gonna do, you probably have seen it before, the little post-it sticker that's on the front of the newspaper. So we're gonna do that, promoting Restaurant Week, and then we'll have an ad inside, and then they're gonna do a variety of digital options for us as well. So most of the campaign is being promoted through digital. We've got banner ads on Comcast, we've got banner ads in WTTW, we've got e-newsletters going out to Dish and different Chicago foodie type email lists and that kind of thing. And we've got some videos that are going out to support the campaign as well. So you'll see some video through these digital options, but it's mostly digital, and these are some of the banner ads that we'll be running to promote Restaurant Week. So again, we're gonna be on WTTW Check Please. We got 15-second spots there, and then some radio following up with JOL and The River the week before Restaurant Week and the week of. And just wanna remind everyone to enjoy amazing deals and flavorful meals here in the Joliet area, February 18th through the 25th. That's it for me, unless you have questions.
Thank you,
I did give you a bunch of stuff at your spots. One of the things that are there is a baseball, and that's signed by Mark Pryor, and that's what was part of our participation with IHSA baseball. So that is an autograph baseball from him.
Oh, that's right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything? Any questions?
Any questions? No. It was a great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda with the following changes? Move mayoral appointments following Council Memo 44-18. And immediately after this vote, if we could vote on the Council Memo 35-18, the ordinance approving addendum number 3. Oops, I'm sorry. Council Memo 37-18, resolution authorizing execution of an intergovernmental agreement with the Rialto Square Theater. And then immediately following that, vote on Council Memo 38-18, resolution authorizing execution of a comprehensive intergovernmental agreement between the County of Will and the City of Joliet.
So moved. Second?
Been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Girl?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Motion carried. First, we should have citizens to be heard on agenda items before the votes. Is there anyone present that would like to speak on an agenda item this evening? Okay. Seeing none, we will move to Council Memo 37-18, which is a resolution authorizing execution of an intergovernmental agreement with the Rialto Square Theater regarding the Will County Metropolitan Exposition and Auditorium Authority and payments from the City of Joliet. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second?
Seeing a governmental agreement with the Rialto. Do you need an explanation? No.
Been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Girl?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
No.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Motion carried 7-1. Next is Council Memo 37-18, resolution authorizing execution of a comprehensive intergovernmental agreement between the County of Will and the City of Joliet to effectuate a land swap supporting the new courthouse, the opening of Chicago Street near the courthouse, and other matters.
Mayor? It's 38-18, Krista.
What did I said 37, yes, I apologize, 38-18.
Mayor, there were a few last-minute suggestions by a few people not in this room. So those minor tweaks are what you have in front of you. So that was this evening. Nothing substantive, but thought I'd pass out a copy for you.
Well, before we vote, I'd like to, Marty, thank you for the work you did on this. Thank you to our partners at the county, Executive Walsh, County Board Member Tuminello, and all the people involved. This is a big agreement for Joliet and for downtown, so thank you for coming to the table and working this out. And of course, Councilman Girl, thank you for your assistance in this also.
Need a motion?
So moved.
The motion and seconded to approve Council Memo 38-18, a resolution authorizing execution of a comprehensive intergovernmental agreement between the County of Will and the City of Joliet to effectuate a land swap supporting the new courthouse, the opening of Chicago Street near the courthouse, and other matters. Councilman Girl? Aye. Councilman Hug?
I just want to thank the county for the partnership, city staff, and my fellow council members. This is actually, for me, maybe I don't live an exciting life. This is exciting. I'll tell you a quick story before I vote. Recently, I won't say who or where, what group of people are where, and I mentioned the opening of Chicago Street. And a number of them, kind of gave me a raspberry and said, yeah, that's a pipe dream, it will never open. If you're watching, I want to read this to you. A comprehensive intergovernmental agreement between the County of Will and the City of Joliet to effectuate a land swap supporting the new courthouse and the opening of Chicago Street near the courthouse and other matters. So, no, actually, it is a reality. So, again, county, thanks for the partnership. Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
I've been waiting for this for a very long time. Absolutely aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin? Aye. Motion carried. Moving back on the agenda to council committee reports, Economic Development Report.
The Economic Development Committee met January 11, 2018 here at City Hall. In attendance were myself and Councilman Morris. Councilman Mudrin was, I believe, out of town, right, Pat?
Correct.
But he is a member of the committee. He was there when we originally talked about this. There's several moving parts there. I'm going to do it, Steve, and you're going to cut me off if I misstate anything at all. I'll try to make it as brief as possible, folks.
4 minutes.
It's going to take 4 minutes just to give you the title of what we did. There's several moving parts. It involves a project. We had one item on the agenda at Emerald and Route 53. Now, not only is the project important, but Emerald and Route 53 is a dangerous intersection. Am I correct, Councilman Morris?
Correct.
When would you like to see a stop sign light up there? Yesterday?
Yesterday.
Okay.
2 days ago.
Right. So you've got the safety factor out there, which was brought up when we had all those folks there recently about the annexation. And when I said we're going to be putting a stoplight in, we have the development itself, which is purported to be the largest development speedway, which is owned by Marathon Corporation, has ever done, as far as retail. And there's land to the east, just past the chiropractic office, about between 200 and 300 acres. Am I right, Steve?
It's west.
West, I'm sorry. Yeah. To the west, where the unfinished Emerald Road doesn't go through to. And that would open that up, and that would quickly become prime development land, okay? So those are the three moving parts on here. We had approved it in the December meeting on December 11th, sent it forward with a unanimous vote of all three of us to recommend you all approve it. And it was based on several things, including a loose guesstimate that it might take 2 years or maybe more to get the state project going. And that would kind of put a big problem with the Speedway project, as well as delaying the safety factor of the new light. It involved the ability to put up temporary lights, and it went back and forth. We got some new information, which predominantly was maybe it could be as little as 6 months. So wisely, our economic development director, Steve Jones, called for a committee meeting just for this, and it turned out to be, I think, 2.5 hours, wasn't it? And we really went over every detail on this. And what we determined was, while we are preliminary kind of being told you're very likely going to get the grant, we don't know that for sure. If it takes us 6 months, that would be a very optimistic. Everything would have to be lined up. All the stars would have to be lined up. But even then, there's no guarantee we would get it. And once we were awarded it, as Joliet Junior College can talk to you about the program they had several years ago from state dollars, it comes from a limited pool. And before they get to our project, they run out of money, then it pushes us up another year. So we considered all these details. So the option that we originally went with was Speedway is going to pay for all this improvement for the development, which means extending Emerald Road, which opens up as 200 or 300 acres. And then they were gonna, we added to their original agreement for the project, 5 extra years to return, to get back the 800,000 it's costing for this project. That's a bird in the hand, that's a guarantee, and they would have it done. I think they said they want to break ground in the fall, correct, Steve?
Correct.
All right, and they could have it up by the following year.
Their estimate was that going through the review process, all the engineering design, they could have the signal operational by January of 2018.
Okay.
19.
And some of the estimates that we were trying to calculate informally is going through the state project, if it did happen, could be in 2020 or even early 2021 by the time we were done. Now that's a delay in turning a nightmare into a safe area down by the industrial area, which Councilman Morris has already illustrated. It's very dangerous down there. So with all the ifs and maybes and the bureaucratic red tape that could pop up, not that we won't approach the state for other projects, I think John Grueling even mentioned today about limited, there's a moratorium on major projects, and there's even a moratorium on the kiddies, or, a cap on the kiddies. So it's just, even after 2.5 hours of really asking a lot of questions, we had the developer there, Steve and Jim Trisna had talked to the state IDOT folks, and we just felt, I think, Terry, I speak for both of us, that we're gonna stick with our original one because it was just too iffy. Is that the best way to put it? That it could be a 2 or 3 year project when we really need it a lot sooner. We did not want to lose the Speedway project, not just for the taxes they'll bring in, but for what they're offering to do at their expense and allowing us to pay on time, if you will. We did not want to delay putting up lights, 4-corner lights, all 4, that would make it safer down there. Right now, there's police that have to go down there and direct traffic at the high times each day. And we're excited about the fact that, and we discussed this, in the process of improving this intersection, they're gonna extend Emerald. They have some kind of, I think, preliminary agreement with the chiropractor, am I right?
Correct.
Because there was some land purchasing and swapping that need to be done for his to have drainage and parking and all those boring details. So we decided too that once we open up those 200 or 300 acres, you can definitely call them prime. Wouldn't you agree, Steve? And when they start developing, we can claw back some, maybe all, but at least some of the money from future development for those people that build who couldn't have built if we hadn't extended the road. We're gonna do it quicker, and it's gonna be done for sure in a reasonable amount of time. So with that, if I left anything else, Steve?
No, it was, we told you it was complicated. Just a little bit of detail at the end.
Go ahead.
If the council does approve the Speedway agreement, which again, as Councilman Hug said, adds 5 years to the agreement, we will quickly come back with some sort of a recapture agreement for council to consider, which will really identify, what share of this total overall improvement, meaning the sales tax the city is giving up, how much of that will benefit those properties to the west. And the goal will be to get that recapture agreement in place so that if there is subsequent development, in effect, some of those developers immediately start to pay, to repay some of that improvement cost as this project is moving forward. So I would hope within the first quarter of the year, we would have that before you.
Okay, so based on the fact that, if we do pay, we'll get some of, Speedway puts the money up, we reimburse them at the end of the original 10-year agreement with a 5-year recapture for them. But then as future development comes to these new linked acreages, then we can get our money back, at least a portion of it back from them. So we felt that it's a for sure project, it's gonna happen. It's gonna address the safety concerns, which were real huge. We really went over that with a fine tooth comb. And it's gonna happen in a reasonable amount of time with certainty. So we voted unanimously to stick with our original, which Pat was a part of, December recommendation that the full council approve the agreement with Speedway developing and doing the improvements. And that's all we had for the meeting. And it took 2.5 hours. One item. Yes, Pat.
Question, I guess, maybe for Steve. What happens to the Ryan agreement to put a light in there?
That agreement would go away because of the fact that it was tied to the grant. We are going to be looking to have a meeting with them to talk about some of the obligations that they would have had to pay under the grant scenario. Because keep in mind, anything not covered by the grant would have had a local share. Ryan Companies was to pay that local share. So we will negotiate something that would be fair to the city and be fair to Ryan and allow us to move forward with the Speedway project.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thanks. I just want to make one point, since Pat brought that up, and I guess the meeting, Larry gave you the short version of it, it was 2.5 hours, just for one agenda item. But Ryan, it wasn't a date for them to put the light in. Is that right, Steve? I mean, it was kind of open, that kind of concerned us that Ryan was, in the agreement to put a light in, but they didn't have a certain time frame to put the light in.
Correct. The agreement, it really was heavily weighed upon the grant coming through, the EDP grant. Mr. Trisna, our Public Works Director, checked into that before our meeting to see if there was some date certain, and there wasn't, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that kind of gave us, a little more, feeling to go with the Speedway option, because the grant may come through, and at that point, Ryan didn't have to put a light in until the grant came through. Is that right, Steve?
Well, I think that the grant cycle itself pretty much would have dictated it. I mean, by no means is there any implication that Ryan Companies was somehow stalling or wanted to delay this. Trust me, they want that light in there ASAP, and if it could have gone in, a year ago, they would have been happy. But ultimately, there isn't a date. So if the state process were to continue another 2 years, there's nothing we could do to Ryan to say, hey, speed this up. We can't wait for the state. So in effect, we have two pathways. One is to kind of continue down the path of the grant with some uncertainty as to timing, or to proceed with the pathway of Speedway, who contends they can get this thing operational by January of next year.
And I believe there was an estimate based on the grant and the estimate for the project that Ryan's local share would have been roughly $250,000, give or take. So that's a good starting off point in trying to recapture some of that money from the original agreement, where they don't have to actually build it, but we still might be getting some local share, correct?
I won't negotiate in public.
Okay. Well, that was, we talked about it in the committee, so.
And we have to figure that out, because some of the cost estimates have obviously changed as to what the construction would be, and then you multiply their percentage times that. We also have the fact that some of the engineering has already been absorbed by Ryan, so it's not quite a simple number.
And so that's a really good example of public-private partnership. And again, it's addressing all the three main things: future development, immediate development, and safety. So, is there a fourth thing that I left out, Jan?
4 minutes are up.
Oh, I didn't start my clock, sorry. I get the official clock, but that's all I have. Okay, thank you.
Finance Committee report.
The Finance Committee, comprised of Councilman Mudron, Councilman Grohl, and myself, met this evening, prior to this meeting, to review the monthly financial report. Next month, we should have a good idea where we ended up this 2017 year, as far as how much we have to use in reserves, or use in reserves. Reviewed the personnel summary, travel expense report, invoices paid report. Found them all to be in order, recommend their approval. Under new business, we talked to City Manager David Hales. He would like to use the Finance Committee to do some brainstorming and some discussion about a 5-year financial plan, and also at some point in time involve the mayor and full council with some ideas on, we've got we have a lot of needs out there as far as our physical things, such as vehicles, our buildings and things like that. That's going to be, an expense in the next years, and how we're going to pay for those. So we'll be starting to work on that, and we thought it was a great idea. If it's probably long overdue that we do that, so we're going to start that process. So that's it.
Public Service Committee.
The Public Service Committee met today here at City Hall. On the committee is myself, Councilwoman Gavin, and Councilman Dickinson. Now, there's a lot of moving parts in this. No, I'm kidding. So we had a fairly simple committee meeting. Basically, it was year-end closeouts on final payments and so forth. There was absolutely no new contracts left. Two things, we just talked about some home runs we're trying to accomplish, but never forget about the small ball. We do have two special special permits for drive-throughs indicating the restaurants are being built or remodeled. The old Taco Bell on Jefferson that has stood vacant for several years will be turning into a beef shack restaurant, okay? That's good news, especially for the neighborhood. And what's the old building being torn down for the Nick's Euro? Oh, the old Bob and Sis, I couldn't remember. The old Bob and Sis, because they're retiring, it's gonna be torn down, they're putting up a new building, and it's going to be Nick's Euro restaurant. So there's two additions of two new restaurants on the Jefferson corridor, which we're always looking to do. Other than that, we found everything to be in order as far as change orders, pay estimates, and so forth. And we unanimously sent it forward with approval. That's all I had.
I show no other reports. Under consent agenda, approval of the minutes. It's recommended the minutes of the combined council meeting held on January 2nd, 2018 stand approved as recorded. Invoices paid report. It's recommended this report be received and placed on file. Council memo 26-18 position vacancies. It's recommended the city manager be authorized to fill the following vacancies with any subsequent vacancies which may occur. 1 maintenance foreman 2 position in the water division of the Public Utilities Department. 1 director of utilities and public utilities. 1 HR generalist in Human Resources Division of the Legal Department. 1 benefits risk management administrator in the Human Resources Division of the Legal Department. 1 electrician 1 in the Public Works Department. 1 electrician 2 in the Public Works Department. 1 management assistant in the Administration Division of the Police Department. 1 public safety dispatcher 2 position in the Police Department. 1 support services supervisor in the Police Department. 1 building safety inspector in the Inspections Division of Community Development. 1 building services director in the Inspections Division of Community Development. 1 business services supervisor in the City Clerk's Office. And 1 office manager in the City Manager's Office. Council memo 27-18, disclosable payments, IMRF retirement. Is there a motion to approve said consent agenda items?
Second?
Been motion and seconded to approve. Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman? Aye. Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Girl?
Aye.
Motion carried. Under licenses and permit applications, Council Memo 29-18, application for a drive-through permit for a Nick's Euro restaurant at 1358 West Jefferson Street. It's recommended the drive-through permit be approved.
So moved.
Second.
Been motion and seconded to approve. Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman? Aye. Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Girl?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 30-18, application for a drive-through permit for a beef shack restaurant at 1606 West Jefferson Street. It's recommended this drive-through permit be approved.
So moved.
Second?
Been motion and seconded to approve. Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman?
Be a huge improvement to that property, I'll vote aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
I'm waiting on the B shack. Aye.
Councilman Girl?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Motion carried. Under public hearings, Council Memo 32-18, annexation of 10 acres located at 1150 Northeast Frontage Road, classification to B3 zoning and approval of an annexation agreement. This is a public hearing, so comments are in order at this time.
Is there anyone who'd like to speak on this issue?
Seeing none, let the record show that the public hearing is now closed. It is being recommended to table this item, all the action items, to the February 6, 2018 council meeting.
Motion to table.
Second?
It's been motioned and seconded to table Council Memo 32-18, an annexation of 10 acres located at 1150 Northeast Frontage Road, classification to B3 zoning, and approval of an annexation agreement to the February 6, 2018 council meeting. Councilwoman Quillman?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Girl?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 32-18 was tabled to the February 6, 2018 council meeting. Under ordinances, Council Memo 34-18. It's an ordinance granting or a resolution denying request to rescind local landmark designation at 509 Plainfield Road.
David, could you give some explanation on this?
Yeah, let me ask Kendall Jackson, our Community Development Director, to just comment on this and Memo 34-18.
Yes, Mayor and members of the council. This is a request by the property owner to rescind the local landmark status of the property. He did have a meeting with our Historic Preservation Commission. Their desire is to keep the property as a local landmark. I believe we have the applicant here today as well as a representative of the Historic Preservation Commission.
Any questions?
Kendall, do they say what makes it a local landmark?
Yes, the landmark was done several years ago due to the property being what's called vernacular, which is of the period. So it is indicative of the type of housing that was built. The original structure was a single story. Second story was put on, and the property owner prior to the current owner replaced, I believe it was asphalt, shingling siding to the original clapboard wood siding. So based on those factors, the Historic Preservation Commission recommended approval of the local landmark, which was upheld by the council.
I think the owner's here. Would you like to address the council at all?
Mr. Mayor, councilwomen and councilmen, I want to start by thanking all of you for your time in regards to this matter. After reviewing the council memo 034-18 attached within tonight's meeting agenda, I would like to review the 7 standards per section 8-606 of the City Historic Preservation Ordinance. This ordinance is the guideline for recommending designation or de-designation of a historic landmark. Item 1, significant value as part of the historical culture, aesthetic, artistic, social, ethnic, or other heritage of the nation, state, or community. As stated in the city memo, there is no denying the fact that this building is one of the older homes in the community of Joliet. The previous owner, Sean Toso, in 2001 applied and was granted historic status for the 509 property. I was not made aware that this property was a historic landmark until 2014, when I applied for a permit with the city building department to re-side the property with vinyl siding. There are no restrictions on the property deed stating any such restrictions. This was also noted per Mr. Schwartz at the November 15th, 2017 JHPC meeting, that there is no restriction noted on the property deed. Meeting notes are attached within tonight's agenda. Item 2, association with an important person or even in national, state, or local history. This property has no such historical significance with the standard. Item 3, representative of the distinguishing characteristics of an architectural type of inherently valuable for the study of a period, style, craftsmanship, method, or construction, or use of indigenous materials. As noted in the city memo, most of the home's historic features were either removed, windows, doors, soffits, fascia, and trim, or covered up at the time of its designation as a landmark. Even though most of the home's historic features were removed, the JHPC still allowed this property to be designated. The building's vernacular design is its only historic feature. The historic feature can be maintained with more modern materials. This point will be further discussed below shortly. Item 4, notable work of master builder, designer, architect, or artist whose individual genius has influenced an era. This property has no such historical significance with this standard. Item 5, identifiable as an established and familiar visual feature in the community owing to its unique location or physical characteristics. The location of this home is not moving and physical appearance of this home will not be changed if de-designated. The vernacular architecture will remain the same if the exterior materials are changed from wood to a composite vinyl or aluminum material. The relevance of its proximity to the mother house at the University of St. Francis is irrelevant. Nowhere listed is the mother house on the City of Joliet local landmarks. Item 6, owner preferences. I do not wish to maintain landmark status. I presented the JHPC with the opportunity to allow a certificate of appropriateness so they could be involved with the exterior recladding of siding to make the vernacular features remain, but was denied as noted in the agenda meeting memo. Item 7, economic and functional potential. As stated in the city memo, the building is 2-unit rental property. The property has no economic impact on the City of Joliet. As noted in the attached 034-18 city memo, the property yields a small net profit of $738 per year if fully rented. Maintaining exterior wood paint is not economically reasonable. Out of 7 standards per section 8-606 of the City Historical Preservation Ordinance, 4 out of the 7, 2, 3, 6, and 7, do not favor this property remain a historic landmark, and 3 out of the 7, 1, 3, and 5, are all open for debate if they qualify for the ordinance standards. I can say this has been a long process dating back to April of 2014 in regards to this matter of re-siding the 509 Plainfield Road building. I have sat in several Joliet Historic Preservation Commission meetings and have been open-minded and respectful to the commission. I've taken advice from commission board members on how to appropriately proceed with this re-siding project without losing the historic landmark status, economic hardship, and certificate of appropriateness, both which have been denied. I was advised by the commission that my next step was de-designation, which I feel is not in my favor as the JHPC has recommended against de-designation, as the 034-18 memo states. As I further thought about this and reviewing the past meeting I have had with the JHPC, a few major inconsistencies stick out. When I asked the JHPC how changes were made to significant historical landmarks to further educate myself in how the process works, I was shocked that there was very little or no record at all on how the following historic landmarks were changed. We all know the Patrick Haley Mansion, major addition added, banquet hall, and was changed the original structure. The Darcy Mansion property was completely moved to make way for parking. The JHPC specifically has told me that altering the exterior wood siding is not allowed, but after doing further research, if the 509 Plainfield Road property is not allowed, I have to ask, why is there one property with local Joliet landmark status as listed on the Joliet, or on the city local landmarks webpage, allowed to have aluminum siding, and that's 257 North Rainer, which was built in 1911. I'm deeply saddened that with the inconsistency of the JHPC and that they could not work with me on keeping the vernacular architecture through more modern construction materials and approving the certificate of appropriateness. My full intention is to reside the 509 property immediately if allowed to de-designate once the weather breaks, and keep all of its vernacular architecture features such as size of siding and style, gable front detailing, large exterior window trim, and covered front porches, just with more modern, durable construction material. Unfortunately, I am left with the request to you, the City Council, to de-designate the 509 Plainfield Road property. One last thing, the property on either side of mine has been purchased by the University of St. Francis. One has been torn down and the other one is a rental property. And I can't help but ask, if denied tonight, what will happen with the University of St. Francis? We all know their project down that stretch, and obviously they would need either appropriateness or de-designation in order to move forward if they purchased it. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for me?
Just a quick question.
Sure.
You purchased the house in 2008, and you didn't know it was landmarked? Who'd you purchase the home from?
Matthew Skoll.
And he didn't relay that message to you?
You can look back at the deed and it's not on the deed.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
Thank you.
So council will need to either vote to adopt an ordinance granting the request to rescind local landmark designation or vote to approve a resolution denying the request to rescind.
I would make a motion to grant the request to rescind.
Second.
It's been motion and
I have
seconded.
a question, excuse me. Okay. Can we come to some type of compromise here with the plan commission or the historic commission and this homeowner? And the reason I'm hesitant to rescind the historic status is because if we get rescinded and he gets a huge offer from the University of St. Francis to tear it down, then we've lost a local landmark forever. But if he wants to fix it up with more modern materials to make it look old, but keep the landmark status, but I don't know if the commission, I mean, they do this work all the time. It's very hard because one by one, we're losing our old homes, our old landmarks, our buildings, our churches, and old Joliet is disappearing. And if you read here, this was nominated because it was built in 1887 by F.S. Allen as his residence. And Romanesque style structure. I know this doesn't mean anything to people that aren't involved with architecture and style, but it has quite the history here. And it was the home, I mean, you know, Sharon Irwin is here. Can she come up and speak? She's from the commission.
Yeah, sure.
Sharon, can you come up, please? I was trying to get a little history of the significance of the home.
My name is Sharon Merwin. I'm one of the Joliet Historic Preservation Commissioners. While Mr. Tenor was speaking, I was trying to make some notes. I'd first like to start off saying that you could look at this house and think this house doesn't look that significant. And to be honest, when I first saw the house when it came through in 2001, this is not a Patrick Haley mansion. This is not a Jacob Henry mansion. But one of the movements in the historic preservation community is to recognize things that just aren't the big grandiose mansions, to recognize the people who built those mansions, whose hands built those mansions, looking at different, you know, persons of color, persons of different ages and communities. So,
Sharon, yes. I don't want to be rude, sure. But we've already started a vote. I think the question was, is there a compromise? Is there middle ground?
But I asked her to give a little history so they could understand.
I know, but we started the vote.
One of the compromises when Mr. Tenor was in 2014 is looking at economic hardship, and that did not work out. That as far as
okay, so the compromise would be with the commission, and I know you can't speak for the commission. It would have to go back to the commission, but. In 2014, I know you went with the clapboard siding, but the aluminum, or not the aluminum, but the vinyl siding. And sir, you stated here today that you would make it look as old as possible, but with new materials. Is that correct? And retain the landmark status. So do you think we could do that compromise there? Can you take, well, it's up to you to take it back to the commission. So I would move to table this and let it go back to the commission.
We already had a motion in a second on that.
Table is accurate at any time, appropriate, according to Robert's Rules of Order. Sorry, Marty.
Even after the vote started?
Yep.
Well, I don't think the vote has started.
It didn't start. No one took a vote. It was motioned and seconded.
Okay.
So I moved to table this so I could go back to the commission for a possible compromise. And then I'm afraid if it comes back here, it'll lose your status.
Can I comment?
It's up to the mayor.
No, with the table comments, there can't be any comment.
That's right.
There's been a motion to table. Is there a second?
Really, guys?
With no second, the motion dies to table. So we're back to it was motion and seconded to adopt an ordinance granting the request to rescind the local landmark designation at 509 Plainfield Road. Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Girl?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman?
No.
Motion carried 7-1. The ordinance granting the request to rescind the local landmark designation was granted.
Thank you.
Council Memo 35-18, an ordinance approving addendum number 3 to an intergovernmental cooperative planning and boundary agreement between the city of Joliet and the village of Shanahan. It's recommended said ordinance be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin. Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Motion carried. Under resolutions, Council Memo 37-18 was previously approved. Council Memo 38-18 was previously approved. Council Memo 39-18, a resolution authorizing execution of an intergovernmental agreement between the County of Will and the City of Joliet for connection to the City of Joliet's waterworks and sewerage systems. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
In motion seconded to approve, Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 40-18, supplemental resolution appropriating additional funds for the I-55 and Illinois Route 59 improvements project and supplemental resolution appropriating motor fuel tax funds. It's recommended said resolutions be adopted.
So moved.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 41-18, a resolution appropriating funds for the Marion Street, York Avenue roadway improvements project 2017. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
Second.
Motion seconded to approve. Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 42-18, a resolution authorizing the execution of home Choto Reynolds sub-recipient agreement between the City of Joliet and County of Will. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 43-18, a resolution adopting a revised harassment policy. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
Been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 44-18, a resolution amending resolution numbers 5922, 6707, 6719, and 7170, and restating the standing committees of the City Council of the City of Joliet. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
If I can explain briefly, about 5 years ago, when the Housing Authority was listed as a troubled agency, we voted as a council to establish a city council committee for the Joliet Housing Authority. As we know, they've done a great job. They pulled out of that troubled status. They're doing outstanding work. So it's my, I guess, I'm asking if we could disband that committee and instead take those committee members and make a prison committee. As you know, we recently have voted to acquire the prison through a lease. There's a lot going on the grounds, including private vendors that are coming to Joliet that want to get in there and invest their money. And I think we need direct city council involvement between that and what the museum is trying to do. So I guess that's the basis for this. I think we should still keep a liaison for the Housing Authority, but I don't think they need a standing committee. I do think that museum or the prison project does need a standing committee.
So moved.
Been motion and seconded to approve Council Memo 44-18. Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
No.
Motion carried 7-1. Next will be Mayor Odekirk appointments. Is there a motion to appoint Councilwoman Gavin, Councilman Morris, and Councilman Dickinson to serve on the prison committee with Councilwoman Gavin to serve as chair.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motion and seconded to approve. Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
We not meeting in the prison, are we? I'm allergic to prison.
Depends what kind of job you do.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Motion carried. Moving on to amendments, change orders, and payments. Council Memo 46-18, pay IWIN user fees. Council Memo 47-18, approve change order number 3 and payment number 4 and final for the 2016 sidewalk curb replacement project. Council Memo 48-18, approve change order number 4 and payment number 4 for the Marion Street, York Avenue roadway improvement project 2017. And Council Memo 49-18, approve change order number 1 and payment number 5 and final for the Forest Park Phase 1 water main improvement project 2017. It's recommended Council Memos 46-18 through 49-18 be approved.
So moved.
Second.
Been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is the city manager's report.
Mayor and council, I'd like to ask our Public Works Director, Jim Tresna, just to come forward for a few minutes and just give a few updates on the recent snow plowing. And I think be helpful just to share with the council some information similar to what was emailed out to you today. So, Mr. Tresna, if you'd come forward and give a few updates.
Okay, yeah, on Sunday evening, about 6 o'clock, we had to mobilize our crew. The snow event started, like I said, on Sunday evening, actually a little bit earlier than that, maybe around 5 o'clock. The whole event lasted till about 1:30 Monday afternoon, the snow event. It was a long event. We had about 4 inches of snow out of it, but it was a long, drawn-out event. Our whole crew, 38 drivers and trucks, were out from 6 o'clock Sunday evening until approximately 7:30, 8 o'clock last night. So it was a pretty long effort. The guys did a great job. I thought they were very tireless. They kept going at it. They had to stay on the mains for a long time because of the snow. You know, the mains, we had about 140 miles of main roads they had to stay on. But then we end up getting back into the neighborhoods at probably starting around 10:30, 11 yesterday morning. And again, we finished up totally by 7:30 last night.
Well, I'd like to add, I thank you to you and your crew, if you could pass that along. I've heard a couple complaints, but more compliments, including, I was at the courthouse this morning. I had a number of attorneys that don't live in Joliet that were commenting how much better the Joliet roads were than the communities they were coming from. And I do think there were a number of communities that did not call their people out until Monday morning. So I compliment you. It's kind of something new, I think, getting ahead of the curve and getting our people out there at the appropriate time so we don't fall behind. So thank you, Jim. Good
Not
job.
a problem. No. And as a side note, it isn't something new. We do that all the time. I mean, we've been doing this for years. I've been here a long time, longer than I'd like to admit at times, but this is our kind of a standard procedure. Our guys are, again, they do a very good job. They get out there and they attack it very well. And then as a side note to the whole thing, we had to come back this morning because we had a little bit of snow again in the middle of the night, about 2 to 3, 4 in the morning. We had about a half inch, depending where you're at. So we had to come back out this morning, and 7 o'clock the full crew, well, the majority of the crew was out. We have a night crew who stayed in, but a 4-man night crew. So we came back out today and hit the roads again, and they were in very good shape as the day went on. Especially with the sun helps a lot when you have product down, you have traffic moving, and the sun's out. Even if it's cold, it was today. That helped a lot. So we're in very good shape.
Mayor? Yeah. I would echo the mayor's comments, and I will say, being from the far west side, John, you can agree. We're so expansive out there. I got 0 complaints about the snow removal, 0. I got a handful of complaints about the neighbors not getting their cars off the street. And I'll tell you what, on the way to the city council meeting tonight, our finance was out in my subdivision giving out tickets, and I did not ask for it. They are out ticketing folks, so I'm telling you.
Well, you're gonna get blamed.
Yeah, I know. You know what the heck, I complain for everything, right? But no, they did a tremendous job, and the police are doing a great job too. You know, I remind people, we're a city of 150,000 people, a lot of cars. Get your cars off the street, and they can tell that you're on the street because you plowed right around them and you still haven't moved it. So, no, I got 0 complaints, John.
None.
0 complaints in our district, so fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, that is.
I got the complaints in your district.
Oh, there you go.
See, that is one issue though we're still having problems with is when people park in the street. We have over 2 inches. You know, the snow parking ban goes into effect. We really need to get people to get the cars off the street. I drove around a lot of the neighborhoods yesterday, just all sides of town, and you can see again there were some streets they were yesterday late afternoon. You're down the bare pavement. I mean, it's the main streets, but then you see areas where cars are parked. You know, the snowplows had to go around them, and that's tough. So we just keep reaching out to the public. If people can get off the street, let us plow. You can go back and park then.
Any other comments, questions? No. Thank you.
Thanks.
Nothing else to report tonight.
Next is new business, not for final action or recommendation.
Ready? Jan?
Maybe we should consider dissolving the Historic Plan Commission because every time they try to do their job, we rescind something or we ignore them. And they put a lot of hard work into this. Comment.
Mike?
Nothing.
Next is public comments. Is anyone present that would like to speak under public comments this evening? Mayor and council comments.
Just like to say thanks to big brothers, big sisters of Will and Grundy County, Mike Trafton, for having us out for their fundraiser on Sunday. We had a great time. The mayor and a few council people were out there, and they had a chili cook-off, and it was really good to see the number of people that came out and supported this great organization. So I just want to say thanks to Big Brothers.
We had one of our councilmen was a judge, and he did a number on that chili, didn't he?
I don't know if he's recovering.
He's paying for it today.
He taste tested 20 chilies. So.
Nothing.
No.
Nothing.
Yeah, I'd echo the comments about Mike Trafton and Big Brothers Big Sisters. It's an excellent organization, and Mike Trafton, our retired police chief, does a great job. Would also like to say, last Thursday there was the Rush Community Town Hall meeting at University of St. Francis. It was put on primarily by Scott Slocum from WJOL. It was very well attended for bad weather. I know there's a number of council people there. It was a good meeting, including with having Randy Blankenhorn come to town, who is the director of the Illinois Department of Transportation. So kudos to them for getting some high-level state employees here to answer questions. I know they're going to have a follow-up meeting, and I just want to thank them for doing that. And then finally, yesterday was the Martin Luther King Day On, Not a Day Off celebration or day of work. It's been put together by Ardale Evans. I think this was the 7th annual time we've done this on Martin Luther King Day, where we have a bunch of volunteers and high school students come out and do community service work. I should note that Mr. Evans has moved to California recently, but he did come back to town last weekend just to put this event on and spearhead the event again. So thank you, Ardale, for all the work you've done for our community. I'm not sure if he's going to see this in California, but it was a great job, and it was good to see him back in town to do this. That's all the comments.
We do have a request for closed session. Is there a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel, collective bargaining, land acquisition, or conveyance pending or threatened litigation, after which the meeting will be adjourned?
Second.
Been motion and seconded to approve. Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin. Motion carried. If I just give you the rollers.